Hey guys, I want to talk to you a little bit today about some deep psychology stuff that we're going to go a little bit deeper here. And this is just for whatever this is worth. I just found this very interesting and I wanted to share it with you. But I wanted to make some correlation between attraction, sex, this cold approach stuff, and just throw some things out there. And this is kind of a little bit more, I don't know, let's say a little more testy of a subject because we're going to talk about sex a little bit. But I had a very interesting conversation with a girl I met last night. We were just chatting it up in a cocktail lounge that I happened to be at last night, and we just started talking about male female interactions and relationships and all this sort of stuff. And we eventually got to the point in time where we were talking about sex and making love and just kind of exchanging some ideas about the things that we experienced, just the male female experience psychologically in these situations. And one thing that stuck out, and this is the interesting part that I want to share with you today, is that we got to the point in time we were talking about, or she was talking about, and by the way, she brought all this stuff up. It was kind of funny that she wanted to probe this a little bit, but she was talking about the style at times which she enjoyed to be made love to by a man, and what she really enjoyed, what turned her on the most, and what made her feel a certain way. And I was very fascinated to know the why behind that. And she was talking about this very, like, little bit more rougher, like forceful, like passionate, let's say like harder way of being made love to, as opposed to this tender, soft, slow, that sort of style. And it was very interesting. What she said was she liked that, and she was very turned on about that because in her mind, it made her feel like the man could not resist her in this moment. Like, she had the ability to make him lose control. Like, the level of attraction that he was experiencing to her was so out of control that he was just having to go about things in a forceful, like animalistic fashion that was just very exciting to her. To know as a woman that she could have that effect on a man was something that was very exciting, that turned her on. It just made her go wild. And I thought this was such an interesting thing to hear straight from her mouth. And it makes a lot of sense, I think, psychologically, like for women out there. Yes, this is like a very big part of their psychology and their validation, let's say, in life, is just knowing that they have this ability to attract a male counterpart. Or not only that, but attract them so strongly and so much that it makes them do something like this in the heat of that moment. It makes them lose control. It makes them like they can't contain themselves because they're just so sexually excited by them. Whatever it is, just visually, the way they move, the way they do things, like whatever it is about that woman that makes a man act this way, it's very exciting. And certainly for us guys, like, yes, there is a huge excitement factor in those sorts of moments. And yes, that's probably a reason why we do the things we do in the heat of that moment. And, you might be going at it a little bit harder with somebody at some point in time. And it's probably related to that reason. Like, you're with a woman that you're very, very, very attracted to. And that's obviously enjoyable. And there's something for both sexes on both sides of the coin that they get out of that. And that was just, like I said, the interesting thing that I wanted to share about what this woman was talking about in the context of that conversation. And I think there are some dots to be connected here, and I think there's some very interesting psychological pieces that could be discussed. And let's zoom back a little bit. Let's take it far from that moment to where you're actually becoming intimate with them and you're in bed with them and you're just very first meeting them. And let's say you are just walking around on the street and you notice this woman, of course. And I think there's a little bit of that same psychology at play, where if you encounter a woman that makes it so that I don't want to say forces you, but it churns up that energy into that you're going to walk across the store, you're going to walk across the street, and you're going to approach this woman because you're that attracted to her, to the point where you're going to walk up to a complete stranger and try to make something happen. That, of course, communicates something to that woman. And it does communicate something about you yourself. And that's something, the last thing I want to talk about, to touch on, about keeping let's say, a little bit of your power, keeping some mystery about you, or not showing your hand too readily. But just the fact that you're willing to take that course of action, it speaks to the woman's, let's say, her abilities or her her internal, whatever, or external, let's say, because odds are it's probably like a physical attraction. That's that first thing that draws you in. But when it propels you to that point, it kind of it drives you to that same level, not quite as much as when you're having sex with somebody, but when the attractiveness is so strong that you can't resist yourself. You have to go up and talk to her. You have to make an approach. You have to try to do something. It makes her feel good. It of course is validating to her. It keeps that feeling alive in her. It keeps that psychology alive, that she knows she can attract a mate. That's a very, very powerful thing for women. I think this makes any woman feel great inside. I'm sure it does. That's awesome, for them to experience that. And maybe for us as men, you have these brief moments where you get to experience a little bit of that feeling if you've been on the other side of the coin and somebody's pursuing you. But in that moment, once again, where you walk up and you make that approach and you try to make something happen. And this is the last piece that I want to leave you with, is that yes, it is a means of validating her. It is a means of communicating what you think or feel or sense about her. Or in other words, the fact that you're very attracted to her, and she knows that by the way that you walk up and approach her in this real world everyday setting. But it's something to keep at the back of your mind. Yes, you can't avoid that psychology, but you don't want to get carried away with it. You need to preserve a little bit of mystery. You don't want to show all your cards. You don't want to just fall over and turn into some loose amoeba that doesn't have a backbone, or that ceases to act like a man of control, or a powerful man, or a powerful person, let's say. You don't want to totally cave in. And that's where a lot of this stuff that I've talked about last couple of weeks, hopefully you've heard some of these talks about just the way that you walk as a man, the way that you talk as a man, the way that you conduct yourself in these moments where you're conversating with this complete stranger. A lot of it's really important to keep your hand close and not show all your cards, right? Not just throw everything out there. Just like I've said before, you're just there to test the waters a little bit. You're just there to feel her energy out. You're there to just put a little bit of, let's say, magic dust in the air and see what happens. You're not there to just totally cave in and throw yourself at her and overly flatter her with compliments and all this kind of shit that all of us guys do at some point in time, or allow her presence and her beauty to alter the way you talk, the way you conduct yourself, the words you use, the tonality of your voice, like all these things. Like you can't relinquish too much of that, because women, they know this stuff, they sense this stuff, and it circles back to that primal carnal instinct that when I said when you're in the bedroom with a woman and you're going at it very hard, and she knows that she's got you to the point where you almost can't control yourself, you're so turned on, you're so attracted to her, like that says a lot to her. And yes, that if they're attracted to you, that of course makes them feel good, and they want to feel like that, and they want to know that they're beautiful. They want to know that they have that attractive nature about them. Of course, that's exciting to them, and it turns them on. But there's some very interesting psychology at play here. There's some, as I said, some primal instinctive things that are inside every one of us. I find this stuff so fascinating, and it's so cool to take a minute and take a pause and just appreciate these elements of the male-female interaction as we're out there interacting. Because these are things that I don't think they're certainly not at the forefront of your mind when you're in the heats of your moments and all this sort of stuff. But just, I think having a higher level understanding of these things and what people are thinking and feeling and going through, it just aids us all, I think, especially us as men, to know a little bit more about the female psychology. And that's why it's so fascinating for me to have these sorts of talks with women and hear it come straight from their mouth, because a lot of things make sense when you're able to look at them from their perspective, or in a little bit different light than we as males. We just have our assumptions a lot of times, but when you get to have these talks, it's really interesting. It's really cool. It's insightful, makes us all better, helps us learn, helps us be better as men, better pursuers, better partners, better people in life, I feel like, at least romantically, and arguably in other realms of your life too. This stuff all builds on itself. It's all interrelated. It's all very fascinating. So, all right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Talk to you more soon.